Hi there, my name is Sophia Hernandez, and today we are speaking to a trailblazer, the culinary queen of Cuban food, and she also has a pretty cool last name. Today in the spotlight is Vivian Hernandez.
Hi.
Hi. So, for those who obviously don't know, if you couldn't tell by the last name, Vivian is actually my tia Vivi. She's my aunt. And I love all my aunts dearly, but Vivi is super cool. And anybody that knows her, she is just beats by her own drum, and she's done her own thing. She lives in San Diego now, and she has opened her own Cuban bakery that has done very, very well over there. Vivi, can you tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do and where you live?
So I've been in San Diego for 17 years now. I came out in 2003. I worked as a teacher at a culinary school when I first moved. That was the job I moved here for. And then I did everything from food marketing to working at another bakery and another restaurant. And then I finally just kind of decided that that's what I wanted to do for myself. And the neighborhood that I live in didn't really have a made from scratch, bakery shop. And then add into that the Cuban niche to it. So it's kind of like we call it like a Cuban style patisserie, which is like a made up term, but it's basically, a girl from Miami that's Cuban that grew up eating pastelitos, but went to school in Europe and makes fancy desserts. And we kind of just tied it together.
So let's talk about all that. So let's go back to yourself, I guess, pre-culinary school. When did you know that that's what you wanted to do? What was kind of like your background in cooking, your aha moment that like, okay, I want to do this full force?
I think it was when I was about 8. I was just really interested in baking for the most part, but cooking a little bit too. And I was, same as now, I've just always really loved feeding people. I love learning what it is that you like. And then you come to my house and I have it.
Yeah.
And for your birthday, I like make you that thing. And usually one of the first things I learn about my friends or anybody I meet is like, what do you like to eat? What do you like this? What's your favorite candy? What's your favorite soda?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. I just love food and everything about it. And, I have 3 brothers. So when they were over the house with all their friends, I would make stuff for them. And it was just always a very satisfying thing for me to have people enjoying something, that I made for them. So I knew I wanted to do something in food. I didn't know, necessarily that I wanted to have my own bakery. I thought I might just, work for someone else. It's just the direction it took me as a woman and having a family. I quickly realized that, it was going to be kind of hard working only nights.
Because you were working only nights before.
Yeah. So for example, when working in culinary school or when I was working in Miami, when I moved back home after school, I was working like 2 to 2. So it was just, it's going to be pretty hard to do that grind for a very long time. It's not going to be sustainable, to have a family and have that lifestyle. And now I still work weekends. I've always worked weekends, and my husband spurts home with the girls, but the hours are better and I can make my schedule. Regardless, you're going to have to be there when it's the busiest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it was probably when I was like 8 or 9 that I kind of just really got immersed in it. I wanted to read every magazine. I wanted to read every book. I wanted to watch every show on TV that had to do with cooking. And there wasn't you couldn't go on the website and get the recipes. So I'd be like scribbling paper and it would disappear off the screen and I'd be freaking out. So I really genuinely loved all about food. I just didn't know if maybe, I'd manage a restaurant or maybe I'd travel or maybe I'd write about food. I wasn't quite sure what I would do with it, but I knew it was going to have something to do with food.
And what was culinary school like? Because that was in London, right?
Yeah. So that was probably when I grew into like my big adult moment. Living in Miami, it's kind of like you eat Cuban food, you have Cuban friends, all your friends have Cuban parents.
Yeah.
You go to, school and almost everyone is like the same.
A constant amount of arroz con frijoles and croquetas.
Yes, you're like in this little, Cuban American little bubble.
Yeah.
And now I would say there's a lot more different cultures in Miami. I think when we were growing up, it was like pretty much Cuban. But living over there and just meeting people from all different places and buying all different foods and not having walking there and living in a really urban city. Also a city where pretty much nobody is from there. Everyone that lives in London is not from London. So yeah, I definitely feel like I grew into my own there, and I kind of just realized there's just this other world outside. And then once that happened, it was just like the fire got lit, and it was like it was not going to stop. Like after that, I was, what am I doing next? What am I going to learn about next? Who am I going to meet next? Like I didn't want to stop.
And the food there, I feel like, is so. One of my close friends, she lived in London for a little bit, and I remember her saying that, like, the culinary experience also in London was just so different.
Indian food, Middle Eastern food, like there's obviously a lot of British places, but even the McDonald's there has like Indian sauce and like Indian entrees. Like it's just like a melting pot. So very similar to New York, but I had never lived in a city. I had never been to like a big city. I'd never even been. And it was just like in my mind, I was like, it has to be great. Like, it's going to be great. Like, there wasn't like, there was no option. Like, I'm going to like this. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be an adventure. And it was amazing.
Yeah. Were there any ever moments that you were like, I mean, and I don't know, because obviously I'm not in culinary school, never went there. But I have to think that in an environment like that, it has to be a little bit competitive as far as, what people are wanting or their goals, and just like having that competitive nature with each other. I'm assuming. What was that kind of like? Was that how it really functioned, or did everybody have their own niche at what they were good at and what they were kind of focusing on?
So when you go to school, it's divided into like basic, intermediate, and superior. So it's divided into sections, and you get lots of people coming to the fancy schools that are lawyers or doctors who want like a career change. Some people really want to do it for a living. Some people are doing it to like learn. And then very quickly you realize that, you're not at home and you're not having everybody be like, this is delicious, you should make this. Or, it's literally them telling you everything that's wrong and bad with what you're doing, because they're there to teach you to be better. So for me, that was my goal. I didn't want someone to be like, oh, this is so great, this is so delicious. I'm like, no, I want you to tell me every single thing that's wrong with it.
Right.
I don't want you to be blowing smoke up my ass. But yeah. So I would say after the first part, a lot of people left. A lot of people were like, I'm not paying money to have someone tell me how horrible my food is.
Right.
And a lot of people stayed. And I stayed for all 3 of the semesters. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, they're not nice to you. They're not there to, make you feel great about yourself. They're there to show you how to make you cook the best food you possibly can.
Yeah. And so then how did we go? So from London, you went back to Miami. What made you make the move to San Diego?
I was, at night, and I just started kind of looking for jobs here. The guy I was seeing at the time had friends that lived here, and I found a job at a culinary school during the day, teaching like a morning class, and I got an apartment on the beach, which I had never lived at the beach, and the weather here was beautiful. And it was, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm just going to be here for like a year, maybe stay through the summer, just see what it's like to live, in California. I had never been to California. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And then that same year I ended up, meeting my now husband. And I remember my mom was like, oh, now you're never coming back. And I was like, oh, she was just like, I knew it. So 17 years later, here we go.
There you go. And we've obviously visited. The life that you have created for yourself there is obviously an amazing one. And a big part of that, besides your family, is your little bakery called Azucar. Can you tell people what the inspiration was behind it and why you wanted to go that route and kind of go back to your roots and do Cuban food? Not traditional Cuban, but Cuban food.
And I mean, living here again, I missed the culture. I missed those flavors. I missed being able to eat those things at any time of day, and I feel like you move to a different city and you kind of take it for granted. But I just wanted to combine that on a little more upscale, a little bit more fine-tuned with really great ingredients and local produce and things like that. So I kind of just took all my favorite little bits and pieces but I also wanted to do, you know, fancy European desserts and geeks. And, you know, I wanted to do the cafe cubano and the cafe con leche and the Cuban sandwich, but then, you know, also have, you know, some different sandwiches and, you know, like a Spanish omelet sandwich. And then we have like fancy quiches with manchego cheese and ham. And it's just definitely like a spin. I feel like when you're in there, my story kind of comes through. You're like, oh, she grew up here, but she did this. So like, I feel like everything we make kind of shows a little bit of that. And my favorite is when I have people come in, they're like, I just moved here from Miami. They're like, I'm so excited. So, you know, like I can live in this beautiful city, but I can also have all my favorite pastries too. So it's nice. It feels good.
Yeah. And as far as how do you come up with, because like you said, you have your traditional, even though they're not really traditional, because I think when people from Miami think of like a croqueta, they're thinking of those little skinny ones that you get at like the chain Cuban places. Like this is not that kind of croqueta, people. This is like the best, thickest, juiciest croqueta you've ever had. I don't like pastelitos de carne, and this one is like sweet. So they're definitely, like you said, quality ingredients into their
small batches. Yeah. So it's not like coming like from a factory and like off a truck. You know what I mean? We're making it all fresh. So the chances are you're probably going to eat a warm one, which is, you know, back home, it's all like under a heat lamp or something.
Right.
Yeah, definitely more upscale and definitely like, you know, what's in everything. I know what's in everything. We make, you know, we grind the vegetables, we make the meat filling. Nothing's, you know, out of a bucket. But yeah, we just try again. And it's more like our generation that like, yes, we grew up eating that, but now we also know what like really good quality ingredients taste like. So you kind of want to have a little bit of both.
Right. And you make too, not just the Cuban pastries, but like you have like your own, like the mojito cookie, which is my all-time favorite. You know, you've had your own other desserts. How do you come up with those that are kind of, is it something that you just practice and you've kind of like tweaked and perfected? Is it that you're inspired by something?
Take flavors that I know speak the Azucar you know, more to me, and then I'll add some Cuban coffee to that, and then that's a little bit more my style now. And instead of, you know, filling something with vanilla cream, that's cafe con leche cream inside of that, you know, croissant. And we just kind of put like a fun spin on everything to make it more like ours and our style.
And I know too, we talk about this often, like you're obviously on Instagram, you're on social media. And I see a lot of times, and you know, because Vivi, she sees my stuff of me posting my food and my pastries and all that stuff that I get from like these Instagram accounts, because you see something and it looks so good. To live in this world now where so many people are kind of taking to social media to perfect and to come up with their own things. What's that like for you, having more of like a traditional, let's say, culinary training versus people who, you know, are just tweaking it out, trying it out and kind of posting it?
Yeah, I feel like you just have to stick with your own style. And I feel like I've always been really true to what I'm doing. I love salty, sweet things. I love textures. I've never really fed too much into like the fad. So I'm not going to come up with one of those cut quesadillas and like fold it over and, you know, just because everyone else is doing. I think that's really important these days, is to stay true to like your style, because if you're just kind of, you know, copying what everything's floating around the internet, it just kind of gets a little bit old after some point. So someone should see know that came from your place, you know, and just the same flavors and the same textures. And I try to just come up with stuff that I want to eat, not just because it looks more Instagrammable and more photographable. It's just actually like, it's very, you know, it's what I want to eat. Yeah. So I've always just kind of stayed true to that theme for my shop. I haven't really like, I'm not going to start selling bagels because now everybody wants bagels or, you know, cronuts or whatever. So we've just kind of stayed true to like our style and what we do. And, you know, for me personally, I get bored. It's been 12 years. Like sometimes I don't want to make guava cheese anymore, you know, raspberry scones, but you have to just do fewer things, I think, and do them really, really well and do them consistently. I think anyone on Instagram or social media can make a loaf of bread or some really cool cookies, but to do them consistently really well every day for like years and years and years, that's like the true talent. Because I feel like you can just get lucky anytime.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think a lot of that too, what you have created is not just an experience when people go into Azucar and they try the pastries and they taste how good it is, but it's the brand, right? Because like the friends of mine that have gone to see your place once, they know, you know, like they see an Azucar thing and they're like, oh, that's Azucar, you know? How, for somebody that's trying to do that, whether it be in a culinary sense or just in any sense, trying to come up with their brand, what's some advice that you might have for them as far as what that's been like for you to kind of come up with that?
I feel like for us, we definitely wanted to create like an atmosphere, and have it, you know, transport you and have it be tropical, but not super overbearing. Like I didn't want to have like maracas all over the place and like have it be too much.
Right.
But and it's kind of like my style. I like very classic looks, but also like super refined. And I like bright colors, but you know, green's always been my favorite color, so I knew I wanted the box to be green. You kind of just slowly start with like the logo and like the packaging. I love packaging. Like packaging is like,
oh, me too. I always say Trader Joe's is my weakness because I go in there eating 5 things, but the packaging is what gets me, and then I end up leaving with like 20 things. It's the worst.
Packaging is huge. And then you kind of build on that, like, oh, does that go with this? Does that go with my theme? Does that go with my packaging? So you kind of just like slowly build on top of it and on top of it. But like I said, I think a lot of people, when starting out, I just tell them it's better for you to do like 5 things really, really well than try and do like 30,000 things and have all these different flavors of things, you know, just to make it look more. You can just do better, you know, and then always add on little by little. But I think consistency is key, because if you go in one time and it's okay, and then the next time it was like not as good, and then another time you went and it was like amazing. So clearly there's like consistency problems.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's a good tip of advice for sure. And for somebody too, I know like you waited tables at Chili's way before this ever happened. You know, like if there was something that you could tell your past self that you're about where you are at now, right? Because I think a lot of people, they're probably where you were many, many years ago, and they're either struggling to figure out what they want to do, or they're stressed out, or they're trying to plan it all out. What would you tell yourself?
Something I think about all the time is, you know, when I was waiting tables, like clearly that's not what I want to do. But if you just, whatever it is that you're doing, you do it with respect and with intention, and you do a good job at it, you're always going to get noticed. And even now I have employees that like, maybe they don't want to be bussing tables or making drinks, but you can tell that whatever they do, you know, maybe it's not their dream job, maybe they're still figuring it out, but they're still here and they're doing it and they're doing a good job. I think, you know, if have that mentality that you're just going to do a crappy job and not really be enthusiastic and, you know, with what you're doing until you find your dream job, like I just don't really believe that. I really feel like the way you work and your work ethic, it's in anything that you do. You know, if you're 15 and your dad brings you to work and he tells you to file these papers, if you're just gonna like throw them around and like keep looking at the clock, I mean, it's gonna be a very hard life. You just have to like put intention into it, and yes, obviously get to your goal job, but there's always going to be someone watching you from far away. There's always going to be someone sitting at their desk in the corner, be like, you know what, that girl, she does a good job. This might not be her dream job, but she does a good job. And I feel like everywhere I've been at, you know, at the very least, when I've left, I've always been seen as like a hard worker.
Right.
And again, those weren't my dream jobs, but I think you have to just get that in the habit of having that attitude, because, you know, it's not like the dream job's going to come around and that's the only one you're going to do good at. You kind of just already have to have that mentality.
Well, I think the important thing too with that is that those are hopefully the people that when you are on your road to getting your dream job, they're the ones that are going to vouch for you. So like,
yeah, they're the ones writing your letter of recommendation. And I've written so many letters of recommendations for girls that work for me going into journalism or working at a TV station or a radio station or getting a job as a police officer or a wilderness, you know, ranger. And because of the good job that they did, you know, no matter what, that really helps you along. And it's just no matter what, someone's always watching. Someone's always going to watch. And if you do the bare minimum, it's kind of what you're going to be known as. So it's really hard to think you're just going to jump from this to like your dream job. Yeah. You know, you have to start somewhere. And at the very least, I think you should start to make a reputation for yourself that, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're present, you get it done. You're like, I see you. This is what needs to get done. Okay.
Yeah, you're a hard worker and you're there to work, right? You're not gonna just kind of like sleep on the job kind of thing.
What I always tell my girls, like, if you put in 0 effort, you're gonna get 0 results. Doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how good you are at it. Like, if you're putting in 0 effort, I don't really know what you're expecting to get out of this.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And last question, you know, I think people might see you and be like, wow, she's had so much success, right? And you are still continuing to be successful. Like, that's it for her, right? Like, this is it. But I feel like that's not the case. Like, this is not an end, but this is just like this is a chapter of a still very long story for Azucar and for you in your career. What are you kind of hoping for, if you could, you know, look 10 years into the future, if there's anything that you would want to achieve for Azucar? And for you personally.
My dream, like forever, since I was, you know, little, has been to write a cookbook. So yeah, now my girls are pretty little still, and they need me, and the business really needs me. But like, ideally, I would love to like pull away a little bit and have it, you know, be able to run a little bit without me less, and then like achieve that goal. That's definitely been a goal for sure, to just like put it all on paper and have this thing left behind, you know, once I'm gone. So my kids and my grandkids can have this like book.
And me, because I'll be like being so many miles away. I'm like, I'll always text you like, can I just, what I'm craving is a mojito cookie, and we can't make the mojito cookie, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love teaching. Like, teaching was something I did for a while. So I love teaching people how to cook, and I love having them get over that hurdle of like, this is so hard, or like, there's no way I can do this. I'm like, no, we're going to do it together. Let's go. We're going to do this.
That's awesome. Well, Vivi, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing this and for joining me. If you guys want to learn more about Azucar and where you can find more information, if you ever in the San Diego area, we will put that down below. And as always, we will be back next Thursday, and you can comment below who you would like to hear from next. Thank you, Vivi.
Thank you. Bye.